Good morning, dear colleagues. We start our work. Please take your seats. Good morning, dear guests. I would like to welcome all of you here at our assembly. We continue our forum and a little bit of statistics. In 2 days, there were almost 30 press conferences and interviews, over 50 discussion sessions. And also we had the expert on healthcare and lots of other events, and we have even more to come. I would like to remind you that here you can discuss some professional issues, and here we would like to summarize our festival, The Formula of Life. It has been held since 2012 among healthcare professionals, and all of the doctors can exchange experience, prove their professional qualification, and show to a wide audience the image of a morning doctor. Every person who dedicates his life to medicine is a hero, and would like to award such a hero winner in the competition of the Doctor of the Year in the nomination of gastroenterologist. And for the ceremony, award ceremony, I would like to invite our special guest.
Of Internal Medicine Department at St. Elizabeth Clinic, Professor Michael Hafner. And before we begin the award ceremony, dear moderator, I want to give you the floor for a short welcome speech.
Well, thanks again for having us, and I speak also for Professor Repici probably, who will talk to us later, at this very prestigious and huge event here in Moscow. The collaboration between us and Russian colleagues has been growing over the last years, and it's extremely fruitful, I think, for both parties. We've learned a lot here in Russia. We enjoy the company and the hospitality of our Russian colleagues, and as I've said, it's a great pleasure and honor for us to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hafner. And сейчас мы готовы.
And now we will give you the name of the winner. Please welcome the winner of gastroenterologist of the year is Startsova, Tamara Skvartsova. Please come here for the well-deserved award.
In such a huge country, it's a big achievement to become elected endoscopist of the year. So congratulations, you must have done a really excellent job to beat all your opponents from the country.
Тамара Андреевна, если вы хотели сказать пару слов.
So, Tamara, if you'd like to say a couple of words, I will just give you the mic. Thank you very much. I am really shocked. I'm happy. I'm very grateful. I would like to thank all those who contributed to my profession, to my life, to my professional development. I'd like to thank people who always support us, who help us, and who are nearby, always helping us. I am very happy to be part of the team which works to improve the quality of medical care for our patients and improvement of health care. Thank you so much, all of you, and good luck to you. Thank you. And Tamara, thank you. I would like you to take your set. We would like to wish you all success. It's time to start our session. Artificial intelligence endoscopy. I would like to give floor to our honored moderators. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. We are starting our work, and we have a unique opportunity to hold our discussion. And that's a very personalized discussion. We can ask any questions, whether they are convenient or not, and we can speak about AI endoscopy. Today we have Alessandro Lepicki, head of endoscopy of the University Clinic from Milano. This is a key expert in Europe, Michael Hafner. Michael Hafner, he was recently introduced, head of a clinic of St. Catherine, and that's a person with huge experience in AI. He is leading one of the groups of developers. and Yuri Starkov, Deputy Chief Endoscopist of Russia, Professor, Head of Endoscopic Department of Vishnevsky Institute, and Sergei Kashin, Chief Endoscopist of Yaroslav region, Head of the Yaroslav Endoscopic Symposium, one of the key conferences for GIT endoscopy in Russia. This is the person who created a school of endoscopic doctors. And yes, so we are starting today's work, and I would like to give floor to Michael Hafner with his presentation on AI. Michael, you have the floor.
Thank you, Evgeny. Well, first, thank you again for having me here. It's really a huge honor to join you guys, and you've been doing such a great work in organizing all those meetings in Russia. So first, let me say I'm an endoscopist. I'm not a mathematician or a computer guy. So if there are any mathematicians here and find errors in my presentations, please forgive me. So we have been using computers for many years to analyze images. This is one of their main goals in medicine, to analyze any kind of imagery we're producing, be it in endoscopy or other procedures. Right now, until 2012, we used more statistical methods to extract features from pictures, but those methods have been plagued with high rates of error. And as you can see, this is the result of the ImageNet challenge. On the internet every year, a challenge is made, thousands of pictures are put into a database, and programmers are invited to analyze the pictures and get the results. And as you can see, once we switched from classic machine learning to deep neural networks, the results drastically improved. In endoscopy, how does computer-aided decision systems work? Well, we have pictures. As you can see here, we take pictures here in the colon, and then we look for features that we can extract and use for further analysis. That's the classic way of analyzing pictures in endoscopy. And we started with our works in the early 2000s until recently, when we switched to artificial intelligence technologies. And we've done a lot of work about this. And initially, the results weren't very comforting. We had bad results. The sensitivity, accuracy was very low. But in the end, with our approaches, we get to have good results. And additionally, technology has changed. Endoscopes were low resolution in the beginning, standard resolution, and now we switch to HD endoscopes. And as you can see here, the detections and classification system have been used for many topics in endoscopy: Barrett's esophagus, bleeding, gastric cancer, colon polyps, and so forth. So what's behind the word artificial intelligence? Well, machine learning, which is a core part of artificial intelligence, is some sort of programming, which means that we don't have to specifically program a computer for a specific task, but he learns certain rules and then draws its conclusions. And deep learning means that we have so-called convoluted networks, folded networks, which use feature extractions and choose the variables on their own and then predict the result. And I'm going to go into detail a little bit later. And artificial neural networks are the mechanisms used for deep learning and used for the recognition of pictures in endoscopy, in radiology. And it's called artificial neural networks because it simulates the brain. The first efforts go back to the 1950s, and the model for developing those networks was neurons in the human body and in the human brain. And another word you always see when it comes to talk about endoscopy and artificial intelligence is computer vision. So the computer sees our images and extracts the feature it needs and then comes up with diagnosis. So what's an artificial neural network? It's a collection of units or nodes or neurons in the human brain which are connected and which resemble the connections in the human brain. And each connection transmits a signal to other neurons. So all those nodes are connected with each other. And then each artificial neuron, when it receives a signal, processes it, validates it, and connects the result and transmits the results to connected neurons. And it also weighs it. So some results are dropped, are discarded. Other results receive an increased weight and become more important, like in the human brain. And the weight increases or decreases the strength of a signal. So all the signal that's not judged important by an artificial network gets discarded, while stronger signals gets improved. You can see it in this graph here. First, you have loose or very vague geometrical structures, and at the end, the picture of a hand forms. And that's how we work in our brains, and that's how artificial neural networks work. But of course, it's much more complicated. You have many layers. It's not that one neuron can decide on a lesion. So you have many layers, as you can see in the graph as well. And those systems learn over time to perform tasks, to interpret pictures, which are not specifically programmed. So what I do, I don't program if A, then do B, and if B is the result X, then do C. I just train my network with many, many pictures, with many videos, and at the end, I tell it what are the features that it has to look for. You can compare it to seeing your grandmother. When you see your grandmother, you don't see it with the eye. What you see is optical information which then gets processed in the brain, and then at the end in the frontal cortex there's one neuron that says that's your grandmother. And it's the same with artificial intelligence. Our endoscope produces image data, the neural network gathers information on, in this case, a polyp, and it extracts the features. And once the features match with what the neural network thinks it's a polyp, it will tell us this is most likely a polyp. If not, it tells us there's nothing. So that's how neural networks work. The next step are convolutional neural networks. I already told you that it's not that simple, and it's a very complex process to come from image data to a diagnosis. So what we use, or what the mathematicians use, is convolution. Convolution are, very simply put, folded networks. So they're not straightforward, they're folded, and we have the ability to pack much more information in smaller matrices than we used with general matrix. And the main advantage is that we can have more layers to analyze our data, and with more layers we get more precision when it comes to the results. As you know, artificial intelligence is the big thing in medicine. And if you look at journals, if you look at scientific publications, if you look at the internet, it's a boom. Everybody talks about artificial medicine or artificial intelligence in medicine because it's a big business. And whatever talk you look at, it's all over the place. And as you can see, there is a lot of money invested. All the big companies jump on the train of promoting their own AI solutions. So it's certainly hyped. And I don't know if you know the hype cycle. It means that at the beginning of a new technology, everybody gets very excited. So currently, we're at the peak of the hype cycle. We have a new toy to play with, and everybody is so excited that we have this toy. So everybody's promoting it, like everybody here of us. But then we're gonna see issues in the future. We're gonna be disappointed with the technology, and it will need more development. And many of the technologies we are using or we've used in the past, they had this hype and then they disappeared. But I think with artificial intelligence, we find this plateau phase where everybody starts adopting artificial intelligence, and I'm convinced artificial intelligence is here to stay. But, there's a big but, scientific evidence. If you look at the literature, those are the publications per year on artificial intelligence in endoscopy. And as you can see, even at the peak of the hype last year, less than 60 publications worldwide have been published on artificial intelligence in endoscopy. And you know, thousands and tens of thousands of publications are printed every year, but less than 50 on AI in endoscopy. So currently, it's a lot of hype and not much science, and this is something we have to remember. So what are applications we can use for artificial intelligence in endoscopy? Well, the first generation is already here, and it's about computer detection of polyps. So you're going to hear more about this from Professor Repici, about polyp detection during colonoscopy. The next step will be detection of cancer, early cancer throughout the GI tract, in the stomach, in the esophagus. We can already diagnose bacterial infections of the stomach without taking a biopsy, just by analyzing it with an artificial network. And what we're also going to see in the near future is differential diagnosis. So the computer will tell us if this is a polyp which is benign, or if a polyp in the colon is cancer. And we're going to see that for many other diseases throughout the GI tract. We're going to see grading of inflammation, among others. What we're also going to see is that the computer will tell us, based on neural networks, where are the borders of a lesion. In endoscopy, we remove early cancer. And it's therefore very important that we know where cancer ends and where healthy tissue begins. So we're going to use it for Barrett's esophagus, we're going to use it for gastric cancer, and we're going to use it for dysplasia in chronic inflammatory bowel disease. But we can also use it to match different data sets. For example, imagine you had a colonoscopy 5 years ago, and you have another one this year. And the computer in the future will be able to compare the two procedures and tell the operator if there's any differences. If there's a difference in your inflammation, if you have chronic bowel inflammation, if there's a progression of other diseases, for example. And we can also use it to combine data from different sources. When we do biliary tract interventions with ERCP, we can combine the data from magnetic resonance and get a better navigation for those procedures. And as in your car, we can see additional assistance systems with artificial intelligence. We can, for example, or we might be able to detect the position, the speed, and distance during colonoscopy. And you know that time is very important for a procedure. If you're too fast, you miss lesions. So the computer might tell us that we have to slow down during a procedure to get good results. Or some procedures might be completely done automatically, like in capsule endoscopy, where right now we have to review hours and hours of video and find the diagnosis. But in the future, I think artificial neural networks will make a completely automated report on those procedures, and the operator just has to validate it. And there are more and more applications that we will see, automated documentations, or even some sort of guidance during our resection procedures, like the automatic detection of vessels, and we'll be alerted to stay cautious, to avoid cutting through the vessel in order to avoid a complication. But as I've told you, there are dangers and pitfalls with this new technology. One is sensitivity and specificity. Right now, the neural networks are trained with pictures, so the network doesn't know more than we do, because we tell the network that's a polyp, but we have to find it first. That's why we also see in real life issues like false positive findings where the system detects a polyp where there is no polyp. That's because we're using still pictures and retrospective data. And most of our convolutional networks are two-dimensional. So it looks at each frame to come up with a diagnosis. But we as human beings think in more dimensions. We also use time. We come to a diagnosis after we've seen a polyp over several image frames. So we don't have to redo the diagnosis every single second like in computers. So we have to teach our computers to not to make a diagnosis based on a single frame, but to take time into consideration. Another problem we're facing is inter-observer variability. So we think that the pathology is the gold standard, but everybody who deals with endoscopy biopsies or histopathology results knows that there are different opinions among different pathologists. So in our training phase, it's very important that we have several opinions on pathology results before we train our systems with that. And then there are other issues like spatial attribution of features. A cancer has malignant parts, but also has benign parts. A dysplasia has high-grade dysplasia, low-grade dysplasia, and normal mucosa in one lesion. And we have to find the margins of a lesion. So it's also, right now, we just tell the computer polyp is a polyp is a polyp. But we don't tell the computer this part of the polyp is high-grade dysplasia and this is only low-grade dysplasia. So we have to take that into consideration as well. And of course, we have to question how robust are the results produced by AI systems. So that's why we need large studies now who have to prove that what we right now see in our test environments is applicable to the colonoscopy in each and everybody of you. So we also may consider that the system might see things we don't see. So there are a lot of variables we still have to address. So coming to the conclusions, we're still in the early phases of artificial intelligence in endoscopy. The technology certainly is hyped today, and I'm also excited about this new technology, but we also have to consider that there will be step backs. We have to stick with evidence-based medicine, whatever we do in medicine, so we have to create scientific data to prove the validity of what we're seeing with AI systems. And we're going to see much more applications than we have today. Today we have polyp detections, but as I've showed you, we're going to see many, many applications for artificial in the near future. But we always have to critically question the answers given by the machine. Think of a pilot. Most of the time, a pilot flies with autopilot, but the pilot still has to know when to take over from the machine and how to fly a plane. And it's the same with the doctor in medicine. We're going to fly a lot with automated mechanisms, with artificial in the future, but we still have to know when to take over.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
So one day it might happen that the computer says no to us and we don't get entry and access to our patients anymore. So let us be careful, but I think the future will be bright for AI in endoscopy. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention.
Огромное спасибо, Майкл.
Thank you, Michael. So this is the clinic where Michael works. I would like to say that development of AI, no doubt, is important now. That's the most important topic because the hype that we have now, we should not lose it. because if we are not developing those systems, we will have enormously high rate of errors in endoscopic diagnosis. And now we have training cycles and training programs, and we are questioning the doctors, making surveys, and we know what's happening in endoscopy. In fact, very often the doctors do not know the classification, they don't understand what they see. And if we are talking about the frequency of Barrett's esophagus, the frequency of errors in this diagnosis, Barrett's esophagus, well, it requires a lot of attention. I would like to thank Alexander to continue. Alessandra. Sorry, Sergey, yes, Sergey. So, Sergey, it's Sergey's turn.
Thank you very much, Evgeny. We should go in line with the movement of endoscope in the digestion tract. So we start with upper level, and then Alexander will introduce his bombing lecture. And the biggest achievements today, we see developments of artificial intelligence and they're in the hand of Alessandra and Michael. They're pioneers in this field that made a lot in order to promote these developments in endoscopy and make a huge step forward. Okay, so let me start with my presentation. Evgeny Leonidovich is quite right saying that endoscopy is one of the most relevant fields of IE development because today because endoscopy today is a very subjective specialty in high-tech medicine, and at our stand-up aquacol training projects, we always say that a few doctors look at the same images or the same videos, and those doctors can get to very different conclusions and give very different assessment of the same pathology. Therefore, artificial intelligence systems are extremely important for us in order to improve quality control, improve diagnostics, and going to continuing the relevance of these systems for the high-tech medicine. Certainly, medical community's opinion is very important to us, but in my presentation I would like to start from the Telegraph cover that made a poll of British journalists and came to conclusions that artificial intelligence is one of the most important discoveries of the present that influence the early diagnostics and the fight with oncology diseases. And that went hand in hand with the developments that represented by our colleagues from Europe, from developments that have been made in Japanese by Japanese experts. In particular, I'm talking about the team of CUDA professor, Dr. Mori. We are going to talk about this program later that allows to make differential diagnostic of pathological tumors in lesions in intestine. And Evgeny Leonidovich said that endoscopic diagnoses are very complicated, and we see a big number of errors despite the developments of a new endoscopic system. Creation of new endoscopic system, we see that multi-center trials still show that the percentage of gaps is still very high, and in many studies it's higher than 10%, and this data also is witnessed in Japan, where endoscopy is at a very high level and experts have extremely good qualifications. and endoscopes with optical abilities are very good. You see that by the data, by the meta-analysis published in Menon in 2014, 11% of upper GI cancers could not be diagnosed at endoscopy. This is a very high percentage. Why? Are we talking about complications, complexity? Because most of neoplastic lesions have very small size, and they have a very typical picture of flat lesions that are not very visible even for the eye of an expert, and this is one of the challenges that could lead to errors. Why do we need artificial intelligence? The latest endoscopic systems that are being used in our practice. On the right part of the slide, you can see a new system, Lucera, produced by Olympus, that was represented by Haruhi Ino in the city of Yaroslavl. It allows to see what we could not see with a standard definition system. At the same time, the latest state-of-the-art systems that do not ask only, they allow us to see more, but the data are more complicated to interpret, to process, and there is a high number of pixels that also require to be analyzed. Therefore, systems, so if we make an analogy with art, we do understand it's easier for us to analyze the picture by Malevich, the black square, rather than see all the details of a very fashionable, trendy artist Christiana Williams that we see on the right part of the slide. In endoscopy, the high number of pixels and high number of data requires to introduce new systems that would help us to analyze and process those signals that are being received from new endoscopes. The focus of new systems is as follows. They use two approaches, a standard approach, CD approach, and deep learning. Michael has been talking about it. But the most important thing is, if we talk about endoscopy of upper part of the digestion tract, that artificial intelligence should detect lesions, to characterize them and do quality control, which is a new trend, the quality control, which is a new trend, is when a system allows us to do electronically the count of pathological lesions and assess the quality of endoscopic activity. I will be brief and will say about most interesting trials in early esophageal neoplasia. I will start from esophagus, a very interesting work done by our Japanese colleagues with Fujisaki and Fujishira professors. Fujisaki works, Mr. Fujisaki works at an oncological clinic in the city of Tokyo, where I studied in 2016. They collected the largest database of early cancers of esophagus. You see it 8.5 images from 384 patients, and they got very good results regarding sensitivity CNN in diagnostics. Here you see in squares we see detection pathological parts that have been detected by systems in on static images. Certainly that study is a study of the first level, because modern trend require to detect lesions at live videos, live images, and first data represented at the latest American Gastro Week are very promising regarding automatic detection of neoplastic lesions in esophagus together with deep learning algorithm. The next work I would like to introduce is the work where our center also took part. It was headed by Professor Rehanadri from the London Hospital. That was on the characteristic of lesions in esophagus. Rihanna group brought together lots of images, a big number of images from 17 patients that says that creation of such protocols doesn't require to involve a big number of patients with neoplastic changes. The most important thing is the number of images. And Professor Hadria's work is based on the classification of neoplasia changes in esophagus, pathological image of these parts. And according to the classification of current Japanese classification, these images were evaluated, have been evaluated. We did it as well. Natalia Sergeyevna in particular was very actively involved, and we got very good results regarding specificity and sensitivity and the neural network of pathological changes. How does those systems work? Those systems certainly are needed to young specialists who got endoscopic image, got with optical magnification, with contrast. Then this image should be processed, and a classification of the data is done upon the results got from computer system. Classification is done in line with the data of pathological cell drawing, and that allows the doctor to make the right solution, which is very important regarding the new neoplasia lesions in esophagus, because they correlated with the data of invasion of the tumor, which can lead to the strategy of the treatment. Here we see that there is no deep invasion, and given the picture, the doctor sees it, the doctor can say resection or dissection. Next, pathological image is classified as B2 cell image that is correlated with deeper invasion. But even though we can make an endoscopic dissection, and third example says that if a specialist get such an image, endoscopic image, then program classifies it as a high risk cell image, and in this regard, endoscopic decision should be only one to send patient for surgery done by oncologists and surgeons. Talking about the stomach, our group made a number of trials in order to analyze the image of stomach and epithelium. We used classification of the European Endoscopic Association together with a group of the experts from that association that defined three groups of such images. Type A, so they divided type A, type B, and type C that are in line with the normal, regular circular, and so on. In this study, Professor Herbert Delsbrunner was also took part, who brought a unique feature in our work. While images were being processed and classified, we used topological features of these three types of visions that allowed us to develop special diagrams that very precisely correlate. They made it possible to do correlation of with the data of images and other studies. What did we do in practice? You see here classification of endoscopic images. Then machine algorithm, traditional machine algorithm classifying those images allow to see pathological parts on the images, classify them, and build on a mapping of the stomach, to do a mapping of the stomach depending on what data we deal with. How does it work in practice? Let me show a few videos. Those results were shown at a large international congresses. Here we see a pathological part with size of 3 millimeters. We use endoscope with magnification of 115. So we magnify pathological spot, and then the program classifies this as neoplastic. Next pathological part that has a similar endoscopic picture, and the same size of 3 millimeters, but it shows a different image with magnification, with optical magnification, and the program very precisely give us a result that it's a benign tumor that should not be resected or dissected. And third, pathological lesion is very flat, very complicated to make a diagnosis, but it has some typical characteristics of pathological spot. We use optical magnification, and the program having data. On the basis of the data it has in its software program, classifies this as pathological and says that this is tumor, and the patient should be treated as an oncological patient with early stage cancer. This data was represented at a European Gastro Week. It was done by Roman Olegovich, a colleague of ours, and we got the first prize for one of the best works in the field of artificial intelligence among all works represented at the European Gastro Week. So talking about in which directions our developments are going to. So we focus on deep learning and artificial intelligence, and database accumulated in the last 5 years allows us to use and train the machines as supercomputers in order to diagnose pathological changes in live videos with CNN. So let's go back to the presentation so we could move forward. Now you will see a short video from a short part of that video that we showed to the Ministry of Health to Veronika Skvartsova when she came to Yaroslavl Oncological Clinic in the August of 2019, and the program is getting more and more sophisticated and allows to detect pathological lesions in the stomach more and more precisely. And a few words about quality control. We have achieved big success, but in particular I'm talking about our Chinese colleagues. Professor Honggang Yu, who also visited Yaroslavl last year, and his group developed a unique system of total quality control in endoscopy. For Chinese medicine, it is extremely important because they do about from 50,000 to 70,000 endoscopic examinations each year, and this work is based at the quality of stomach examination with the use of the systematic protocol developed by Mr. Yao, our colleague from Japan, and it shows the spots, the points that are included in that protocol in order to cover the spots that can be neglected by the eye of an endoscopist expert. It allows to track dark spots in the stomach, areas that are not examined during the endoscopic exam. I think it's one of the most important directions if we talk about quality control. I think that in future the systems Mr. Repici is going to tell today are going to be optimized even more, and they will be included in the final protocol of the examination, the number of pathological lesions, and they will help the doctor to make a proper diagnosis, and will show us how we are going to, we should upgrade our endoscopic examinations in future, depending on the control being done by artificial intelligence. And advantages and benefits of the new contemporary system is they are very obvious. Systems are not tied, they do not lose concentration, they are a very important second opinion that help a doctor and healthcare servants to carry out health control or quality control, and they accumulate a database that allow to train and test endoscopic experts, specialists, and they allow to do unique automated quality control. At the end, I would like to say a few words about those who need those systems. Leonardo da Vinci divided people in three classes: those who see when they are shown, and those who do not see. Modern computer systems are needed by all three groups. Those who see, they need those systems because it's a very important tool for scientific research, data collection, development of new innovation technologies, testing those technologies, and creation of new control system. Those who see when they are shown, those systems are very relevant and important because they assist, it's a good assistant to make the right decision in order to protect our patient from errors. And those who do not see need those systems because it helps them to see better and control quality much better. Thank you very much for your attention. Sergey Vladimirovich, I have a very simple question to you. So, artificial intelligence, can we realize that in 5 or 6 years we can learn a nurse to do colonoscopy, and if there is a problem, then the doctor will join and help you to make a conclusion? If there are no problems, this is. Can we think it's going to be a piece of cake in future endoscopy? Well, the number of people who want to be trained is getting higher and higher because the rest professions won't be in such a demand. We need those who will organize processes, but certainly we are going to upgrade trainings. You showed a picture by Leonardo da Vinci. I think it's a very good bridge to the presentation of Alessandro. Alessandro, in fact, has a fantastic presentation and will show us fantastic results of his developments and machines that they use for endoscopic.
Good morning, everybody. So first, I'm not intelligent, so I have no conflict of interest in appearance, but indeed these are all my conflict of interest, and I have to disclose because some of these companies, they are all working on AI. So, little touch of history. So, the first time that we used the term artificial intelligence was because of this guy, John McCarthy. He was a scientist. He organized a meeting in 1956 in the United States in a nice place, all together with the technician, with engineering, with the other scientists, and they were trying to give a name to the machine that was one of the first computers that was doing exactly the same mathematical operation that we normally do, but in a much faster way. So they thought that it was doing the same of our intelligence, but was much better, much faster, much easier. So this is why they call it artificial intelligence. So when we go in the field of medicine and endoscopy, in particular, we have to know that this is artificial narrow intelligence. So it means we ask to the machine to perform a single task based on a specific data set that we provide to them. So if you look in general, AI medicine, these are all the systems approved by FDA. And if you look, there are no GI system up to now. This is my Excel file. I keep collecting all the application to FDA. There is a simple way to see on the FDA website how many companies are updating, applicating for FDA system, for AI system, and this is the only approved for GI, which is a 9-point medical device for detecting dysplasia on Barrett. So have you seen there is a lot of interest of AI, especially in endoscopy, because we have a powerful machine, which is the scope, we have a vision, and we have to try to diagnose as much as possible. So in colonoscopy, specifically, there is a lot of application. I would say the most important work in the field of AI in GI has been done in colonoscopy because we can do polyp recognition, classification, we can define abnormal areas also in IBD, we can measure the extent of lesion. So as you can see, in colonoscopy there are two main groups of AI. One is AI for detection, KD, and the other one is AI for polyp characterization. What does it mean? This is AI telling what is the histology of the lesion that we are looking during colonoscopy. So why we need AI in colonoscopy? Because colonoscopy is a very imperfect tool. We're still missing a lot of lesions. We have the issue of interval cancer. If you look to the adenoma detection rate, so our diagnostic capability is very variable. So this is a measure of the top detectors in the world. These are 4 physicians that reported in their papers very high adenoma detection rate. So they are super good in looking to ADR, but when you look to the average of data published up to now, the average of physician, they detect half of the lesion detected by the other experts. So this is not acceptable. And this is also data coming from Italian colorectal screening program, you see there are most of the physicians who are not able to detect the right amount of adenoma, and these guys will benefit a lot from using AI. So, to give you how AI can change my work. So AI doesn't suffer from fatigue, is never tired, is always working, is not affected by external factors, and is operator independent. And this is the human. I'm always tired, occasionally working, and overwhelmed by external factors. So for example, my football team is Inter Milano. When we went out of the Champions League a few weeks ago, my ADR that day dropped down to 0 because I was very upset with my team. So AI is never upset with anybody. It's not operator dependent. So for the future, for the physician here in this room, we need to be familiar from the future with the AI alphabet. There will be many terms that we will be using, and altogether these terms have a specific meaning. And in the field of polyp detection, all the systems have been developed using deep learning, and all the systems have a superimposed box. There are boxes of different colors, they're just indicating where the polyp is. So it's like a second operator that when you do colonoscopy is telling you, okay, there is a potential lesion over there. Just address your attention to that part and just see whether or not this is a true polyp. Of course, for training the AI system, we have to work a lot. We work considering the different factors like bowel prep, mucosal pattern, different kinds of diseases. When we start training the machine, we realized that the machine was not able to recognize benign diseases from polyps. So it's huge work. And to show how AI works, this is the GI Genius, the only commercially available up to today. Probably from tomorrow there will be the Pentax system as well onto the market. But this is the system that we have been developing in the past 5 years. The system has been completely developed in Italy, in Milano, is now marketed by an American company, by Medtronic. So you see, even though you are distracted, the green box is telling you that you have to go in that situation, in that area. So, but if you look to this article in medicine, in Nature Medicine, we still are a little bit reluctant in uptaking this in clinical practice, mostly because there is a lack of convincing data. So we have done a lot of work, but if you ask me how many prospective randomized trials have been done up to now, I have to say very, very limited data. And this is study reporting what will be the feeling of the physician when they are proposed with AI. And so this is an international survey done in many countries with the pathologists. If you look at the pathologists, they were saying all the time they were very happy to be supported and helped by AI in their practice. So where we are now with AI in colonoscopy, there are several top players and there are also many startups, small companies. I think that I can predict that in 5 years, all colonoscopy will be performed using AI. There will be no colonoscopy without AI. Right now, there is Medtronic. I said in a few weeks, Pentax will be approved also in Europe. Unfortunately, this is the only paper published. It's a paper coming from a Chinese group, published in GATT last year. You see they were able to demonstrate an increase in the adenoma detection rate of 9 points, but what is unacceptable that their baseline ADR was extremely low, 20%, below the threshold of the guideline. And also when you go to clinicaltrial.gov, try to understand who is working in the field of the research for colonoscopy in AI. You can see about 9 ongoing trials, 7 come from China, 1 from Japan, 1 from Spain, and we have the only one Italian trial that's been already completed, 800 patients. Data have been submitted to DDW and also to Gastro. And as you can see, using the new GI Genius AI for colonoscopy system, we were able to increase the adenoma detection rate by 14 points, which is extremely high result because we started from a baseline adenoma detection rate of 40%. So for the future, my view that we will be using AI more and more, and we will move from polyp detection to polyp characterization.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, do you have any questions? There is a unique chance to ask questions. Yes, please. Good afternoon. I would like to thank all of the speakers for wonderful lectures and presentation. My question is to Sergey. So, about AI. And in his presentation, Michael mentioned that there is a lot of interest towards AI, and there was a lot of hype if we look at evolution of publications and this topic. Starting from the 1960s, now it's a peak towards AI over the past years. And as Sergey, your group is the most active one for AI implementation in our country, and you have international projects with our country. My question is, how do you see development of AI now under this new wave? What are the barriers to against its implementation in clinical practice? Financial issues, technical issues, and if they are present, how do you plan to solve them in the nearest future, whether they will be solved at all? And the question is to our international experts as well, because if we look at the slide shown by Michael on the growing number of publications, in fact there are few publications, there are not many, and for now it's hype, not interest, because scientific and research bases are very few. And Professor Repici mentioned that the randomized studies showing the advantages of AI over natural intelligence, there are no such facts. And well, we are still not in the beginning of this way, but we are not at the level when we can implement those systems safely in clinical practice. I think that the most promising area for application in our country will be quality control and the use of this system in quality control for endoscopic diagnostics. And we understand that we should have good systems for that, and we should have the system to record photos, videos, and data. And another important thing we did not mention today, and the artificial intelligence systems today are based on a very good standardized videos or pieces of video. We need to train the doctors not to how introduce endoscopic equipment, how to also examine the organs. That's important I show the standardized protocol of Professor Yao and the Chinese experts' work with his standards, and Professor Hafner and Repici showed colonoscopic diagnostics, how we should prepare a colon, and how we can use all of the opportunities, show that we find everything so that we avoid blind spots. Your question is great, but we are gradually walking towards that goal, and we train the doctors to hold the endoscope in the right way, and implementation of systems, I think we will soon do that, and that's a financial issue. Development of similar systems in our country, it's complicated because of under-financing of the groups which work in this area or could work. Unfortunately, we don't have grants for good work, for the works that could become a success, and that's important that we are discussing this topic with the management of healthcare. I think we should be thinking and considering that, and yesterday's and today's sessions speak us about the following. We are very close to such situation. As for AI, there is one more thing here. Recently there was a study published for cardiology, but it will be very understandable for us. A big analysis of ECGs for people over 60 with the help of AI, and the machine can say what is the gender and the age of the person. And if we do ECG to a person over 40, and then with the accuracy of 80% you can know the age and the gender. That's wonderful. And there are such things which in endoscopy can be easily digitalized. Capsule endoscopy in the first place. Why waste time to watch 6-7 hours of videos? Of course, this is work for AI. And those medical areas which are small. And we have colposcopy at our stand. Everything is good with the cervix with the use of AI, cervical cancer detection. And we need to aim to do the same, and we need to be active and moving fast. And there's a reason why I asked this question. Can we see such a situation in the future when in the screening center there are 6-5 nurses doing colonoscopy, and when they find something complicated, when the dissection or resection should be done, they call the doctor. And that's an important thing. And this curve going down in terms of the quality of work of endoscopy specialists, and 20% ADR, you cannot fire those people. We need to train them. They should be trained, or they should have AI so that the ADR grows. And that's an important thing for our work. I think that Yuri would like to say the position of the Chief Federal Center for Endoscopy. Dear colleagues, Evgeny, yes, that's a very important topic, not for gastroenterology, not for endoscopy, but for surgeons as well. That is why recently we decided at all Russian conference of surgeons, and we'll have a big conference for surgeons in April from 7 till 11. At one of the sessions, the virtual technologies will be discussed in surgery and AI, and in endoscopy as well. And me, as organizer of this session and member of the Russian Society of Surgeons, I would like to invite you to participate in the meeting. And of course, we need to use new technologies and these new technologies are widely used in the rest of the world. I think very soon AI will be helping us a lot.
Our international experts, Alessandro and Michael, what is your opinion? How far we are from the implementation of such kind of systems in daily practice? Alessandro, in your department.
In my department, we already have. My department, we started already 6 months ago. So I would say in upper GI, we're quite far. It takes some time. For lower GI, there are 2 systems approved. There are 3 companies which are already working with the FDA to get the American approval, so it's there. And there will be at least, in 3 years, there will be at least 6 different systems into the market.
I think we have to distinguish between centers like yours, Sergei's, and mine, which are involved in the development of such system, and in the broad group of other centers which do endoscopy in our case. There are 3 parts which are important. One, they have been mentioned in part, cost. We don't know how much this will cost. Companies can't tell us right now.
We know the price of Medtronic system.
Yeah, but at least in Europe, they're discussing
high.
whether you have to pay a fee for the service or whether you buy the system, so it's not fully decided. And we are in public healthcare, most of us, so cost is a big issue. Second, evidence. Our hospitals will pay for things where there's evidence behind it, and not for things we'd like to have all the time. And third, legal implications. We didn't talk about legal implications. What happens if an AI system detects or misses a lesion and the patient has interval cancer after having colonoscopy with AI? Because if I don't see the polyp, or because it's hidden behind a fold, or the bowel preparation is bad, there might be still a relevant lesion. And this is something healthcare systems will have to deal with, about legal implications. Who's responsible? Is it the doctor? Is the company producing the AI system? So there are a lot of unsolved questions. I agree with...
I don't see any legal law.
Well, not in the US.
No, this is misleading argument. Sorry, Michael. This is totally misleading argument. So the AI system can see whatever you expose. If you do not expose, it cannot see. So it's very simple. And I think if we keep going with this argument, we back to very old age and very old behavior. So there is innovation in front of us. If we start thinking about legal issues with AI, I get very surprised, very, very surprised.
Yeah, but in the US, this is a big topic. But I fully agree with you that this will be a vital part of all endoscopy units within few years. So once the price comes down, which will be rapidly the case, once we have the data, everybody will have it.
More companies lower the price. So this is why we need to have more companies in this market.
This will be as normal for us as is assistance in your car today.
Yeah.
Эта тема, конечно, очень интересная.
Of course, this is a very interesting topic. Once again, I would like to draw your attention to the following. It's very important to provide for quality control. I think this is very close to real clinical practice. And now to the second session on AI. We will show our latest development in terms of quality control for colonoscopy in automatic detection of cupula of the blind gut and the pedicle. And this is one of the quality indicators for endoscopy. Such systems should be developed. And this is very important because if there is no intubation of a cupula of a blind gut, and there will be no payment of this colonoscopy as for legal risks. And yes, and now we have unmanned cars. And they are in Moscow. You may not believe that, but that's true. And they are driving Moscow streets. And they are widely used at Skolkovo as for insurance of these cars against the damage of unmanned cars is the same like as diagnostics with AI. Yes, this problem do exist, but we have to approach endoscopy in the right way so that we show everything to AI. Maybe, probably, after a while there'll be robots performing endoscopy. And also, the capsules are moving now, and they are managed by magnets. Maybe we will also acquire new skills here. Alessandra, what do you think? Just to make the summary of our discussion.
Years colonoscopy will be done with a capsule guided by AI, and those positive will be scoped by nurses because we do not have physician enough. Fully trained nurses that will take over because we do not have the number of physicians in many countries that can support the increasing number, the demand of colonoscopy based on the adoption of screening program in all countries. So probably there will be a lot of capsules and also a lot of nurses taking over the positions, like in UK. Everybody driven by AI, don't worry.
I really love that forecast because just at the morning session, me and Alessandra, we were talking about quality colonoscopy, and I said that to provide for colorectal screening in Moscow, the number of colonoscopies done outpatiently should be increased by several folds. And this task can be accomplished. It's not just we need centers of excellence for colonoscopy, and we also need to train the doctors. It must be done, but this type of solution Alessandra is talking about, which will just enable us to make a breakthrough in diagnostic, that's great. We need to take notes of that. Alessandro, in 5 years' time, everybody will be with capsules and AI. We will remember that and we will check that in 5 years' time. We will invite you once again to our assembly so that in 5 years' time we will see what happens. I think in Italy that will be the case. That will be...
So invite Michael, which is much better, much younger than me. No, thank you.
No, but I'd like to challenge.
I will drive my car somewhere around Como Lake, but coming.
But I'd like to challenge Alessandro. We both won't have a colonoscopy in 5 years. We both have biomarkers checked, and only if the biomarkers are positive, we both go to an AI-assisted colonoscopy to have the polyps removed.
Of course. I will go to Michael for sure.
Спасибо. Коллеги, если...
Thank you. Dear colleagues, do you have any questions? Thank you.